Prime Minister Pashinyan, coming back to the question I asked at the repercussions of the war of Russia against Ukraine on your country.
Thank you. I also would like to express my gratitude to you and for organizing such a format. I agree, maybe it is a historic meeting, but it's very important to identify the content of the history that now is being created, because we can have different outcome, consequences or results, and I think we need to be result-oriented, and that is our approach. And as far as your question is concerned, you know, global instability can make things in our region better, because, you know, for a long time, all international attention is concentrated on Ukraine, understandably, and it creates new risks for our region. And it's very important to keep the international attention to our region as well, because I think there are many risks to be managed. What is our approach to this whole situation? We stayed devoted to our democratic reform agenda, because we believe that democratic reforms, the development of democratic institutions, rule of law, human rights, independent judiciary, etc., would make the overall situation in our region better, and we think that it is a benefit for whole region for us to do our part of the job.
You mentioned also, Prime Minister Pashinyan, that you are helping in Turkey also now in the face of this horrible earthquake. Do you see a perspective that between Armenia and Turkey, what we have been looking for over many, many years, decades, that there is actually an improvement of relations? At some stage we were close to, again, getting rid of the blockade. And where do you stand there? Is there a perspective that out of this horrible crisis, this catastrophe, humanitarian catastrophe, something good may come out in your relationship?
Deciding to send humanitarian aid and rescuers to Turkey, we had humanitarian motivations only, because millions of people suffered next to us. And but in the process we see quite positive reaction from the Turkish government, and if this step will have political results as well, it's better. But our initial motivation, purely humanitarian, and as we announced, we are ready to provide as many humanitarian support as it is in our capacities, and we are ready to do that. As far as political dialogue is concerned, to be honest, before earthquake, we had political dialogue through the special envoys, and I believe that in reality this dialogue was very important. I mean, in the creating atmosphere where these decisions were made, and I believe that through this humanitarian conversation and communication, maybe the opportunities for concrete political decisions will be higher. Especially, Minister, you mentioned visited Turkey, and some political arrangements were mentioned there, and we are ready to go forward, because we believe that really the establishment of diplomatic relations with Turkey and the opening of our border would be very positive, not only in terms of our regional situation, but for international situation as well.
Now, let me come to the elephant in the room, if you allow me. This is, of course, the question that President Aliyev alluded to at the very beginning, the war that started, is it 2 years ago already? And we see a situation which is still very critical. We are not here to do any negotiations, but of course we are, when you look at it, the outside, the international community, we are concerned about the humanitarian situation, and one looks always, as we have been looking right now with regard to humanitarian aid to Turkey, we are looking at humanitarian steps. We see the Lachin corridor that is seen from the outside blocked, and we wonder, and maybe Prime Minister, you can tell us a bit about maybe efforts to have some confidence building measures there to see that somehow the situation improves, and we would of course all, and afterwards I would like to turn to President Aliyev again, we would of course like to see that through some small steps we come to a de-escalation and come closer to a resolution of this conflict.
Thank you. You're right. It's already 70 days that the Lachin corridor is blocked, and now unfortunately we have a humanitarian crisis in Nagorno-Karabakh and energetic crisis as well, because electricity supplies to Nagorno-Karabakh have been shut down, and the gas supplies as well have been shut down, and we counted, and during last 70 days the gas supplies were cut at least 10 times, and it is the problem that should be addressed. And our position is that in the trilateral statement from 9 November 2020, we have very precise provisions connected with Lachin corridor, and according to that statement, it is the obligation of the Azerbaijan and Russian peacekeepers to keep Lachin corridor operable. But now, unfortunately, we have totally different situation. And I meant Lachin corridor as well, saying that international attention should be kept on this situation, because we are afraid that continuation of this situation can cause unturnable humanitarian consequences for Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh.
Now, as I said, we cannot replace negotiations here, but I would like to give the Prime Minister Pashinyan, a possibility to react to what he heard from President Aliyev.
Thank you. About Nagorno-Karabakh, you know, President mentioned trilateral statement, and on that trilateral statement we have provision. And we have Nagorno-Karabakh on trilateral statement, and we have signature of the President of Azerbaijan under this document. And we have Lachin corridor that should be freely operable. And by the way, according to that trilateral statement, out of control of Azerbaijan, and it is according to the signature of President of Azerbaijan. And recently, you know, some Armenians children from Nagorno-Karabakh, they tried to travel by bus through Lachin corridor, and they were stopped, and some Azerbaijani persons with masks intruded into bus, and the children there were screaming, and that was the last attempt of the Armenians on Nagorno-Karabakh to freely commute through Lachin corridor. President Aliyev mentioned destroyed mosques. You know, I would like to say that in 2017, in Azerbaijan, several mosques were destroyed for building new roads. And President Aliyev mentioned that several, I don't know how many thousand mosques that were destroyed. And by the way, in the Soviet time, in Azerbaijan, approximately 1,560 mosques were destroyed. And that it was the usual thing for Soviet Union. In Soviet time, churches were destroyed, mosques were destroyed. And you know, Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh, they shouldn't pay the debts from the Soviet time. And you know, it's very important, it is very dangerous narrative, because I'm afraid sometimes there is an impression that Azerbaijan want to give some religious context to this whole situation. It is very dangerous. There is no any religious context in the conflict, and the proof is that that we have very good. And by the way, in our country, we have Muslim minority, and we have in our country acting mosque, and that is the reality. And you know, the wording of Azerbaijan, what is concerning, using the almost offensive wording, capitulation, etc. You know, from a side it can be impression that now Azerbaijan, and that is maybe reality, that Azerbaijan adopted a revenge policy. You know, revenge policy, and maybe that is the policy of Azerbaijan. But as it was mentioned, we have very complicated history, and I just said, yes, maybe it is historical meeting, but for what purpose we want to use this? For inflaming intolerance, hate, aggressive rhetorics in our region, or in opposite, we want to use this platform for making things better. We think that this platform vote to be used for constructive purposes. Of course, we can now tell many stories of enmity, but what is the meaning of our leadership? To deepen that enmity, or to use our capacities, our authorities, our mandates. I'm proud that I've been able, our government was able, even after the devastating war, to have free democratic elections in our country that was worldwide acknowledged as free, democratic, and transparent, and competitive. And as I said, from our point of view, is the solution is democracy, the solution is transparency, the solution is dialogue, the solution is respect for all countries in our region. And we are ready to work to that direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The question to the Prime Minister of Armenia is, you mentioned a couple of times that collective treaty, security defense treaty organization is not very productive at the moment, and raised this issue that Armenia might be leaving it. So could you dwell a bit more on these prospects?
Well, you know, and it was public and transparent, we have some concerns connected with the CSTO, and we raised those issues with our partners, and actually we made it public, and we are working, and the concerns are there in the place, and we are working to address all the issues that and all the questions and concerns that we have.